great August summer holiday so far. We're continuing our healing series today, but before we go into it, I just wanted to share with you something I received in the post. So my parcel, opened it up, and it's a crown, and all ready for us to be able to use when we get back to kids' church. But as I was about to put it away, I suddenly heard God's voice, and God's voice said, "Put it on, it's yours." And I was like, well, it did come in the post for me, so I know it's mine. But as I put it on, I suddenly felt him remind me of actually that I am his daughter and he is a king. And therefore that makes me royalty with him. And that's what we're going to be looking at a bit today. We're going to be looking at our identity as sons and daughters of God and then living in that. And it reminded me of a story that my friend, Michelle Corbell, told me once. We were in Gambia, actually, and I asked her whether I could share it with you today. And she said yes, but it's a story, so I think we need to find a good story listening zone spot. So let's see if we can find one. This works. So today's story is about two children who lived in a kingdom, but they lived on the outskirts and deep in the woods. They were poor, they were lonely, they were lost, and they were hungry. They didn't know who they belonged to or how they ended up there. They just knew they had each other, but felt that there was something more, but they just didn't know what that looked like. One day, a knight came on his beautiful grey stallion to their house. He called out their names, and they ran out to go and greet him. "How did you know our names?" they said. And he replied, "You're here! We found you! You're here! We've been looking everywhere, all over the kingdom. We've been searching for you every single day." The children looked at each other confused. Why was a mighty knight like him looking for those two? He saw their confused expressions and said, "You are the missing children of our king. He's been looking everywhere for you, high and low, and wants you back in his home. Do you want to come home? Do you want to come and live back with your dad, the king?" The children looked at each other, a bit confused, but suddenly a peace landed in their heart. They just knew that even though they hadn't met the night before, that he was telling the truth, that their dad was the king. They jumped on the back of the horse with the knight, and they galloped back to the castle of the centre of the kingdom. As they arrived, their mouths dropped open. Just how beautiful and magnificent the palace was. They started questioning, are we really the right people? Have they got it wrong? How could we, so small and poor and lonely and lost, ever live in a place so beautiful and magnificent as this? The knight turned round and said, "Welcome home." He brought them into the palace and took them to their rooms. As they each opened their own bedroom door, it was like someone had known them and had created their own room from looking inside their heart and in their mind. All their favourite things were in there, a room specially prepared for them. Then they came in, they took off all their old tattered clothes, and they were given new clothes of silk and velvet and beautiful things. They were taken into the banquet room where they saw a long table stretched out with the most incredible food that you could ever eat. They went to the table, grabbed something to eat, but they never got to finish their plate of food. There was always more for them to have if they would like to. And it seemed that everyone, no matter who they are, was welcome to the table to come and eat. The knight grabbed their hands and brought them to come and meet the king, their dad. As soon as they opened the door, they saw their father's eyes lit up in love. He opened his arms up and ran towards them, scooping them up, saying, my children, you are home. This is your home. Everything you see belongs to you. All of the treasures that you'll ever find are yours to have and to use. Every single promise and things I decree are true for you as well. You live here forever, and I will forever be your dad. Will you come and join me? Will you come and show and invite our other brothers and sisters to come and join us in this palace, in their home too? The children looked at each other, smiling widely, smiling back at their dad, looking up, and touched his face. He was real, he was there, and he was speaking truth. They gave him a big hug, nodded, and went to continue exploring the castle, the palace, hand in hand with their dad. So that story is like our story, that we are part of God's family, and we are part of the royal heavenly family of God, who is King of Kings, Lord of Lords, creator of the universe, and he calls us his children. Now, when you go to like a sporting event or like the Olympics, each country has their own flag, don't they? And they represent their country in the Olympics. And here on earth, we get a chance to represent heaven, that we get to almost, through our actions and our words, we're like waving the heavenly flag of God's kingdom here on earth for everyone to see that we are part of the kingdom of heaven and what God wants to do and release here. And as his kids and his children, and because of what Jesus did, we are seated right next to Jesus. And Jesus is seated right next to God. And that means that as we're seated right next to him, we can hear him so much more clearly, and we can see what he sees as well, because we have the same perspective. When we remember that we're his sons and daughters and we're seated next to him, we know that we have a relationship with God. And he shows us what's in heaven for us to release here. We just have to ask for his ears and his eyes, and then the words to speak. And then we can have all of the treasures that are up in heaven released here on earth, because we are his children and we have authority to do so. And this goes with healing too. So in heaven, there is no sickness, no disease, no death. God promises wholeness, and that means health too. So when we see someone who's ill, we have to remember that we are sons and daughters of God, the King of heaven, who is good and has all goodness and love in heaven ready to pour out onto everyone around. And we just need to listen to his voice and see what he sees as we release healing over those around us. So today, take a moment. Either you could make your own crown, maybe you have your own crown already, or just imagine your crown, place it on your head, and ask God to show you once again and remind you the identity that he gives you as his son and daughter, and how we can live